Ladies and gentlemen, I have a very special treat for you today on the HammondCast show. I'm sitting here with an old friend, one of the old guard, one of the greatest, funkiest timekeepers in the business, and a very nice cat, and we have him here with us today, Chris Parker. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing great, thank you. Nice to be here.
It's great to see you, Chris. And we met at a very interesting session from NARES, which is the Recording Academy, and Ray Chu, who was nice enough to point you out in the audience. And have you played with Ray?
Many times. We did a lot of Ashford and Simpson's records together, and we did live gigs. We had a band called the Parker Brothers for a minute with Ronnie Cuber, and Ray's an old buddy, you know, from the McKell's days, and always been very fond of him. Great player. And as we both noted at that NARES session, he's a great diplomat too. He really negotiated now with the singing bee and the shows that he's doing. He's a great diplomat. He always had that quality, but I was really amazed. And he was way too I was completely humbled the way he kept pointing me out, and I didn't expect that at all.
Well, he was obviously very fond of you, and that you were there, and it opened him up to a whole bunch of other stories too. And of course, Ray's got just a non-stop backlog of stories from all the various artists that he's played with on television show specials, and of course he's the band leader for the Live at the Apollo, and he can work with just any range of singers, which as a keyboardist, that's one of the most difficult assignments, as you know.
Yes.
And you're also known for backing up a lot of great vocalists too. Who are some of the vocalists, so our listeners can know who you are, man?
Back in the old days, Bonnie Raitt was one of my first albums that I did. Maria Muldaur, Bonnie Raitt.
Yeah.
I played with Aretha.
Paul Simon, of course.
Paul Simon. Esther Phillips was a hit. What a Difference a Day Makes. Mm-hmm. She was fun.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of great singers.
And you were just talking about that you did some sessions with Bobbitt, one of the great Motown session bass players. And so what were the things that you did with Bobbitt on bass?
Bob Babbitt. We did mostly...
Babbitt,
Babbitt.
Yeah.
We did mostly jingles, but a lot of different companies. It was mostly jingles. I think we're on a few records together, maybe Love Child's Afro-Cuban Rhythm Band. That was a Michael Zager production.
Is he living in Nashville now?
I think so, yeah. That's the emails I get from Nashville.
So a lot of cats have moved to Nashville.
Yeah.
It seems like the recording scene is pretty live in Nashville now.
It is. I just talked to guys from Nashville at the NAMM show this past week, and they say it's slowed down slightly too, and more things are produced out in LA. But there are like 3 tiers of work there, you know, recording work and clubs and like demos for stuff. In fact, a lot of writers live there, so you can work a lot just writing demos, which is always fun, you know.
When we went to see Aretha Franklin in Tunica, Mississippi, and she brought some first-line horn cats in for her date from Nashville, and they were smoking, you know. So even Aretha Franklin is using the Nashville session cats, you know.
Sure.
So you were born in Chicago, as I was too.
Yeah.
What year did you come to the Big Apple?
Well, I went to art school here in '68. I went to the School of Visual Arts, and that's my first degree in fine arts. And then I answered an ad in Rolling Stone magazine for a drummer needed for a band in Woodstock. So I moved out, and that must have been early '70. And then came back, you know, 3.5, 4 years later.
Wow.
It's kind of like the big fish.
From an ad in the paper, huh?
Yeah.
That's beautiful, man.
I never see those anymore in Rolling Stone, you know, but that was before the internet and cell phones and all that. You know, people put an ad in the paper, and I happened to answer that one, and it turned out well. At least it got me to Woodstock, where there was a a bigger colony of musicians and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I ended up meeting Butterfield. And,
Right. So we're just talking about the Better Days band you had with Paul Butterfield, one of my favorites, and so was Paul living here in New York at the time?
Paul lived in Woodstock. He had a beautiful house. His wife at the time, Kathy, and he had a new baby, Lee.
Mm-hmm.
They lived out in Wittenberg, not quite as far out as I lived. And he was really enjoying it there because his manager, Albert Grossman, lived there,
that's right,
and Bearsville Records was there, and he had a really nice scene. And you always ran into the guys from the previous band, like Ralph Wash and
oh yeah, Ralph,
Fuzzy Featon and Sanborn and Gene Dinwiddie, Philip Wilson, all those guys.
Trevor and Steve Madeo.
Trevor and Steve Madeo, yeah,
right,
all those cats still lived in that area.
How about Rod Hicks? Did you get to play with Rod?
I did. We did quite a few gigs together.
One of my all-time favorite bass players. Oh man,
yeah,
right.
He's great.
Yeah.
We did, I think, one whole tour was with Rod before.
No kidding. Wow.
We had.
Have you heard anything of Rod Hicks?
I haven't lately. The first time we got together with Butterfield was Merle Saunders on organ and a guy named John Kahn, who's no longer with us, from San Francisco. And then I think Rod came in after that, and that was before Billy Rich joined the band on bass.
Smoking. Oh,
yeah. The Tofi and the Pussycats is my current band. We have a live album out from the Detroit Jazz Festival, which I gave you, and we've got another album kind of halfway or 3/4 of the way in the can, which will probably come out by this September, I'm thinking.
You're the actual leader of this
I'm
group.
the actual leader,
Okay.
so
that's great.
And a bunch of my tunes in it. Ralph McDonald is in the band on percussion, so we play his famous tunes, just the two of us, and Where Is the Love and Mr. Magic. So, and we've written some stuff together. In fact, one is called T, which is like a transcription of Richard T's last thing he sat at the piano and recorded.
Wow.
And we transcribed it and tried to do him right, tried to make it like a real T tune.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's one of our favorite numbers. But we got a bunch of new stuff in the can, that are all co-written or written by Will and Dave, and I really look forward to finishing it up and getting it out there.
That's great, man. Well, you covered so many different styles of music, and there's a lot of young drummers out there that want to know how they can become so diversified style-wise. What were some of the drummers that you listened to when you were developing as a professional musician?
Well, my dad played soprano and clarinet, and at one point in his life swapped his soprano and his clarinet for a set of drums. So I grew up with drums from age like 2.5. He would put blocks on the pedals so I could reach the hi-hat and the bass drum.
Wow.
And his thing was Lionel Hampton and Benny Goodman and especially Count Basie, Duke Ellington, and Monk was probably who I heard more of than anybody else. Monk growing up, so I loved Frankie Dunlop and Philly Joe and of course Max Roach. But even before that, the big band drummers, Sam Woodyard with Duke Ellington and Joe Jones, especially with Count Basie, were the guys that I said, man, I want to play like that. I want to have that kind of feel and that kind of time.
Very sophisticated taste for a young cat, though. That was beautiful that your dad turned you on to that music.
It was indeed.
And folks, we want to tell you about Chris's website, which is a work in progress.
It should be, by the time this airs, you should be able to go to chrisparkerdrums.com.
Right on. It's real easy to remember, and there's a lot of Chris Parkers out there, but you're the only one I care about, man. You're one of my very favorite drummers, and I always enjoy listening to you. And all the musicians love to play with you, Chris. That's why you get called so much. You got a great feel, and you're a great cat. And I want to thank you for coming in and appearing on our radio show on KYOU Radio in San Francisco. So, Chris, what have you got to say to the listeners at KYOU before you get out of here?
KYOU, that rhymes with blue, and that's my cue.
All right. Thanks a lot, Chris.